In the early 1980s, in Iloilo City, a young boy named John Edward Jed Madela grew up surrounded by the sound of music. His father, a dedicated choir conductor, filled their home with rehearsals and harmonies, while his mother's warm voice lifted every Sunday service at their local church. Their modest home became a sanctuary of melodies, hymns echoing through the walls, laughter mingling with rhythm, and the constant hum of the piano filling the air. Jed would sit by the piano, his small fingers trying to mimic his father's chords, his eyes wide with wonder as he watched how simple notes could turn into something magical. At just 5 years old, he gathered the courage to sing in front of his parents for the first time. As his voice filled the room, pure and powerful, his parents froze in astonishment. It wasn't just a child's tune, it carried depth, control, and emotion that seemed far beyond his age. His father's eyes glistened with pride, and his mother clasped her hands, realizing they were witnessing something extraordinary. From that day on, music became more than just a family tradition for Jed. It was his language, his way of expressing emotions he couldn't yet explain. Every note he sang told a story, every melody carried a piece of his heart. Even as a child, Jed's voice didn't just entertain, it moved people. It wasn't simply a gift. It was a calling that would shape his destiny. During his teenage years, Jed Madela's life took a more complicated turn. While his extraordinary voice continued to earn admiration from classmates and teachers, he silently wrestled with insecurities that few could see. Growing up in a traditional environment, Jed was often reminded that pursuing music was not a stable career path. He was advised to focus on academics, to find a real job that would guarantee a secure future. Though he smiled politely and nodded, deep inside he felt torn between practicality and passion. After finishing school, Jed tried to follow the safer path. He entered the corporate world, wearing suits instead of stage costumes, and traded melodies for meetings. But each day behind a desk left him feeling emptier. The music that once flowed so freely from his soul was now trapped inside him, begging to be heard again. He would come home late at night, sit by the window, and hum softly, the songs becoming both his comfort and his reminder of what he was missing. One evening, unable to ignore the ache any longer, Jed made a life-changing decision. He looked at himself in the mirror and whispered, "I can't let this voice go to waste." With that, he resigned from his job and chose the uncertain path of a dreamer. It was a bold move, one fueled not by confidence, but by faith that his voice was meant for something greater than silence. In 2005, Jed Madela stood on one of the biggest stages of his life, the World Championships of Performing Arts in Hollywood. The hall was grand, filled with lights, cameras, and flags from across the globe. Each performer represented their country, their voice a reflection of their nation's pride. For Jed, this wasn't just a competition, it was the moment he had been preparing for all his life. Behind the curtain, he took a deep breath, remembering the little boy from Iloilo who once sang in his living room. As the spotlight hit, silence fell over the crowd. Jed began to sing the prayer, his voice soaring through every note with power and grace. Each line carried emotion, hope, faith, and love for his country. The audience watched in awe, mesmerized by his control and sincerity. When he finished, there was a heartbeat of silence before the hall erupted into applause. Some spectators were even in tears, moved by the purity of his performance. Later that night, the results were announced. Jed Madela won 6 gold medals, 1 silver, and the most prestigious honor, Grand Champion Performer of the World. As the Philippine flag rose behind him, Jed's eyes filled with tears. He had done it, not just for himself, but for every Filipino dreamer who had been told their dreams were impossible. In that moment, his voice didn't just echo through the hall, it resonated across the world, marking the birth of a true world champion. Fame soon followed Jed Madela's historic win. He became a household name in the Philippines, performing on television, releasing albums, and filling concert halls with thousands of fans. His voice, once heard only in a small Iloilo home, now reached people across the world. But behind the bright lights and applause, Jed faced a reality few could see. The demands of fame were heavy: sleepless nights, constant pressure to stay perfect, and the fear of being forgotten in an industry that changes overnight. Though the world saw a confident performer, Jed often felt lonely and exhausted. There were moments when he questioned his worth beyond the stage. The weight of expectations made him doubt himself, and the applause that once gave him joy began to feel hollow. He admitted in later interviews that success tested not only his strength but also his faith. There were days when he wanted to step away from everything, to find peace in silence again. One evening, during a concert, Jed sang "Love Takes Time." As he reached the final chorus, his voice trembled, and tears streamed down his face. The audience thought it was part of the act, but it wasn't. In that moment, he was singing to heal his own heart. It was the beginning of his self-discovery, a realization that fame meant nothing without peace, and that true success was not about being admired, but about staying true to oneself. Today, Jed Madela stands not just as a world-class singer, but as a mentor, storyteller, and symbol of resilience. The years have refined him, softening his edges but strengthening his soul. He now uses his voice not only to perform but to inspire. Whether on stage, in workshops, or through social media, Jed reminds people that greatness isn't defined by trophies or fame, it's found in purpose, humility, and heart. When he mentors young singers, he shares his own struggles, the fear, the doubts, and the lessons learned from failure. Winning the world means nothing if you lose yourself, he often tells them. His words carry the weight of experience, and his students listen, knowing they are learning from someone who truly understands. Jed's performances today are different, deeper, more emotional, more human. He no longer sings just to impress, he sings to connect. At one concert, under a single spotlight, he performs "Go the Distance." His voice, still powerful but now more soulful, fills the room with hope. As he sings the final line, the audience rises, not just in applause but in gratitude. Jed smiles, a genuine, peaceful smile. It's not the smile of a man chasing perfection, but of someone who finally found meaning in his journey. Jed Madela's story is no longer just about a singer who won the world. It's about a man who found his truth, and used his voice to lift others toward theirs.